Religions are the engine of change in our continent, the place where identity meets inclusion.
Oh yeah? You reap what you sow. No wonder the EU wants to copy Rwanda, and yet another British Pakistani, predominantly anyway, rape gang, and it's finally been exposed. Also,
as a black person, I'm feeling bullied by the BBC, my employer, for being black.
A GBNews exclusive exposing unbelievable woke, rabid left-wing bias at the BBC. Plus,
when you look across the Commonwealth, there's no way that we can move forward unless we acknowledge the past.
what do you make of Harry and Meghan's fake royal tour of Nigeria? And
get up, have a drink, have a ciggy, and try and get more drink.
The office politics.
Because I used to my side job centre, I got barred. I don't give a
Welcome to the full-time job of living off the state.
benefits Britain. Too many people are on the take. Get back to work.
Have therefore informed the SNP's National Secretary of my intention to stand down as party leader.
And now he's out of work. On my panel tonight is Daily Express columnist Carol Malone, the darling of the left, Benjamin Butterworth, and political commentator Susan Evans. Oh, yes. And would you eat this? Get ready, Britain. Here we go. The BBC has been captured by Black Lives Matter. Next.
Good evening, I'm Ray Addison in the GB Newsroom. Our top stories. The SNP is preparing for a leadership contest after the Scottish First Minister announced his resignation. Humza Yousaf's admitted he underestimated the level of upset that he would cause by cutting political ties with the Greens. He'll now continue in his post until a replacement can be found. Clearly emotional, Mr Yousaf said he's quitting to help repair relationships across the political divide.
No ill will and certainly bear no grudge against anyone. Politics can be a brutal business. It takes its toll on your physical and mental health. Your family suffer alongside you. I am in absolute debt to my wonderful wife, my beautiful children, and my wider family for putting up with me over the years. I'm afraid you will be seeing a lot more of me from now.
Well, the race to replace Humza Yousaf starts now. Former Deputy First Minister John Swinney says he's considering it carefully.
I've got lots of things to think about. There's the whole question of my family, and I have to make sure that I do the right thing by my family. They're precious to me. I have to do the right thing by my party and by my country. So there's lots to be thought about, and I'll give all of that consideration in the days to come.
The Northern Ireland Secretary says the government is surprised by how quickly its Rwanda plan appears to be working. Speaking at a British-Irish conference in London, Chris Heaton-Harris said they hadn't expected the deterrent effect to begin before flights took off. It comes after the Irish government said it's seen an 80% increase in asylum seekers entering from Northern Ireland. They want to return them to the United Kingdom, but the government says that will only be possible if we can send small boat migrants back to the EU.
It was always going to be the case. We believed as a government that our Rwanda policy would act as a deterrent for people coming to this country illegally. I think we are slightly surprised that it's manifested itself so quickly after the Act became law. And we are now in the process of making sure that we are gathering those individuals who could qualify for the first flight to be on that first flight.
And finally, 2 men have appeared in court charged with murder after a torso was found in a nature reserve in Salford. The 68 and 42-year-olds spoke only to confirm their names and dates of birth with the help of Polish translators. Greater Manchester Police believes that human remains at 3 other locations belong to the same victim, a man in his 60s. The initial discovery was made by a member of the public at Kersaldale Wetlands more than 3 weeks ago. For the latest stories, sign up to GB News Alerts by scanning the QR code on your screen or go to gbnews.com/alerts. Back now to Patrick.
Good evening. The BBC was captured by Black Lives Matter. Some staff are card-carrying Labour Party members who think Rishi Sunak is a fascist and the Tories are the devil and it might not be a great workplace for Jews. This is what leaked staff messages from inside the BBC appear to reveal. We've got leaked messages from the BBC's Global News staff messaging channel, where employees discuss current affairs amongst themselves. As the Black Lives Matter protests were taking place, the BBC's head of digital projects and delivery issued some direct actions to staff. They said, it's important for us to go beyond the optics of being an ally at this time. They went on, if you're a mental health first aider, there are no specific resources to help guide you in assisting people impacted by racism or the current police brutality and Black Lives Matter movement. This is a glaring omission and it's problematic in itself. And when creating a presentation or creating a test article, please do not use articles with images and videos of violence against black people because it's re-traumatising.
It's really important we all educate ourselves at times like this. It's our responsibility to do so, especially if we're white. Reading anti-racist texts and informing ourselves on police violence in the US are good places to start in order to better understand the impact and structural challenges of racism.
Yeah, and they went on.
There are lots of good reading lists on the internet at the moment. Here are some good examples. I'd like to offer to organise and facilitate a book club for these texts specifically.
I mean, they wanted staff to be re-educated. Other comments from BBC employees, all written since October 2023, described the Conservatives as evil, Rishi Sunak as a fascist. They also engaged in conspiracy theory chat about him calling off a general election for fake national security reasons. One staff member said the Lib Dems got into bed with the devil when Nick Clegg partnered with David Cameron. Another staff member reveals that they are a Labour Party member and that they felt the BBC was racially attacking them for running a story about a black football player being pro-Palestine.
As a black person, I'm feeling bullied by the BBC, my employer, for being black. To clarify, I'm not saying that the BBC is bullying me for being black. I'm just feeling that they are. I am a member of the Labour Party, and there is a division of views on Gaza. This is a news story, but a black guy posting his sympathy for other black people is not a story.
One Jewish employee appears to reveal that behind the scenes at the BBC there is a heck of a lot of rabid pro-Palestine chat, which is hardly a shock considering the BBC were reluctant to call Hamas terrorists.
Why I'm saying this is that the BBC staff have a variety of experiences, and I would ask that perhaps on a topic that involves so much horrific death and destruction, please be sensitive to fellow staff who are suffering right now. We are also persecuted minorities who watched our friends die in the most horrific ways. I won't repeat here, but we are suffering greatly.
Hyper-woke, left-leaning, critical race theory engaging, anti-Tory tosh there from BBC staff. Having said that, I bet that didn't come as too much of a shock to you though, did it? We reached out to the BBC for comment and a BBC spokesperson said, we are aware of the content of a small number of posts on an internal messaging app and we are reviewing these. Thanks, guys. Well, joining me tonight to discuss all of this is news reporter, the man who unearthed this, Steve Edgington. Steve, good to see you. Right, I mean, this is, I would argue, quite rampant bias right at the heart of the BBC. I mean, they were completely captured by BLM.
Not only does it show rampant bias internally, and the views of staff may not be surprising to our viewers, actually some of these comments are extremely out there. They're spreading conspiracy theories. Rishi Sunak is going to cancel the election using a war scare with Russia, but arguably they're also anti-Semitic. The comments that you were referring to were defending the phrase "from the river to the sea," which is widely seen as an anti-Semitic chant to destroy Israel. And another BBC staffer said it was simplistic to call Hamas the baddies when you're comparing them to Israel. And I think when you've got a conflict in which one side are explicitly genocidal and murdering over 1,000 Jewish civilians last year on October 7th, calling them the baddies isn't simplistic, it's just true.
Oh, absolutely. And they said they'll do it again as well. Look, Stephen, in your view, what does this actually mean in terms of actually affecting the BBC's output? Because these were members of the current affairs news team, is that right?
There's a wide variety of staff who are involved in these chats. Not all of them were journalists. Some of them were things like software engineers. And these people, some of whom work behind the scenes on the BBC. But the interesting thing is that they're trying to apply editorial pressure on journalists, on editors, on producers to change the BBC's output by describing the BBC's output as racist. And we've seen in other messages that are describing BBC News articles as transphobic. They're clearly trying to apply pressure to their bosses, which is totally incorrect. And also, you've got to remember, these messages are available to all BBC staff. All 5,000 BBC staff can see this stuff. And the BBC constantly calls for social media companies to moderate their content for disinformation and for spreading conspiracy theories. Yet when the BBC staff do it themselves on their own internal platforms, they're allowed to do it without any moderation. And this suggests, some people are saying, that BBC editors actually condone this stuff. Why aren't the BBC getting involved? Why have the BBC taken 3 days to send us a comment for this story? This is the first. We've done 3 stories on this. This is the first time in literally the last hour they've sent us something about it. They clearly don't take it seriously whatsoever.
Look, Stephen, thank you very, very much. That's Stephen Edgington there. Make sure that you follow him, of course, and GB News for more articles like that. Let's get the thoughts of my panel now. I'm joined this evening by Daily Express columnist Carol Malone. I've got journalist and broadcaster Benjamin Butterworth and, of course, political commentator Suzanne Evans. Carol, I'll start with you on this. Concerning stuff, I think, captured by the BLM movement for one, really.
I've worked in newsrooms now for 35, 36 years. And yes, depending on what government is in power, you would have, you're one or the other. And you might not be working for a paper at the time that supports the government. However, the rules about news are clear. You do not get emotional about it. You don't put your emotions into the story. You don't put your political biases into the story. You put truth into the story. You put fairness into the story. And if you can't, especially if you're the BBC, if you can't do that, the charter should be taken away. It's, the BBC would always insist their journalism is accurate. It can be accurate, but it doesn't mean it's fair, and it doesn't mean it's balanced. And what we're seeing here is that a load of people have political views, and they're putting those views into their reportage of the news, which is totally against all the rules.
I've said today's been a great day for Britain, and we're going to go on to talk about some bumper topics. Humza Yousaf's gone, the EU's copying our Rwanda plan. We've told the Irish to swivel over returning illegal immigrants. It's fantastic. But now, Benjamin, it's got even better, because we can see beyond doubt that what everyone thought was going on the BBC is.
That's the end of the question, OK. Look, Carol is right on the one hand. When you're working in a newsroom, you have to see things objectively, even if you're working for an outlet that has a particular stance, because that's your responsibility as a journalist. But I really don't think this is a serious story at all. I mean, look, some of these people don't even work in news and current affairs, as the reporter just commented himself. And what you want in a newsroom is for people to bring different insights, different takes, and it doesn't mean that it's an institutional problem with the BBC.
We see it on their reportage every single day. We see that we've seen it with Gaza. We've seen it with Hamas. We've seen it with Brexit. We've seen it during COVID with Boris.
Saw it with Black Lives Matter.
The bias is there.
We did. And can I zone in on that? Because they said that they had to go beyond being an ally. And Black Lives Matter have published a manifesto which was, I would argue, overtly communist. OK? And the BBC were just captured by it completely.
Absolutely, they were. I mean, the classic one for me, that Black Lives Matter protest, was when the protesters had scared a horse to the point it bolted and knocked a policewoman, went into a traffic light, seriously injured, and the BBC commented, oh, she fell off her horse. Like heck she did. These protesters actually forced that animal and it caused serious injury. It's the hypocrisy of this that gets me. These are people who set themselves up as objective fact checkers. They look at at other people's news stories and they complain about them and they pull them apart and say they're not factual. Yet here they are doing this absolutely extreme left-wing bias. And what about other staff members who don't share those views? How would they feel?
I do take on board a lot of what you said, by the way, Benjamin. You got a valid point.
Very generous.
But somewhere where I think maybe you would agree is there was a member of the Jewish community who was posting there who felt compelled to say, essentially, in paraphrasing, but can you consider the fact that Jews died in the October the 7th attack? And that does imply there's quite a lot of rabid pro-Palestine chat behind the scenes.
Well, I mean, that is something that should be an HR issue in a newsroom, right? Somebody shouldn't feel uncomfortable based on that. Yeah. I would actually, as uncomfortable as it might sound, I would still say you have to take your personal experience out of judging the news. But look, I just think, this is a handful of employs
it's an organisation that employs left-wing people.
The fact is,
Benjamin, as somebody...
Let me just finish. You look at the journalists at the top of the BBC. I think they do an exceptional job of being impartial. But if you
would do if you're on the left, and you are.
If you think they're questioning their impartiality, well, the Director General tried to be a Tory councillor and ran the Tory party in Hammersmith and Fulham in the 90s.
They are absolutely not objective. I'm sorry, Benjamin. As someone who's considered to be on the right, I've done umpteen interviews on the BBC. It's always me against two people on the left. The Brexit debate, it was always me against four people. OK, so maybe it's four people on, you'd go on Question Time and I'd be the one sort of right-wing voice and a wet Tory.
And we have a state broadcaster now that is in no way representative of the state. We see that every day. We see that by the number of people who stop buying the licence every year.
Yes.
It's 1.5 to 1.7 million every single year and growing, because you're not talking to the majority of people in this country.
All right, well, look, concerning stuff, and I suspect there's quite a lot more where that came from as well. I just wanted to bring you that at the start of the show because I'm sure regular GB News viewers and listeners will have had a day chock-a-blocker full of Humza Yousaf quitting, which we are going to be talking about, and also, as well, the EU Rwanda plan and migration. I just thought I'd mix it up a little bit, but coming up, is the Rwanda plan working? Because the policy officially became law last Thursday, and despite no planes taking off yet, it already seems to be having a positive effect. I'll be getting the thoughts of the leader of Reform UK, Richard Tice. What does he have to say about the government's immigration policy? We've got migrants now saying they wish they'd never come. We've got Ireland saying migrants afraid of Rwanda are flooding across the border. It does seem to be working. But up next, two parenting experts go head-to-head because we're asking, are you now afraid of Britain's feral kids? Some astonishing video coming your way shortly.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
But first, to a story that makes me very, very proud. The largest cross of St George in the entire country has been unfurled in my home city of Nottingham. Look at it. Now, we all know how so many people have tried to cancel England's national flag, so this is a great thing to see. 6 days before St George's Day, well, we've been out and about in Nottingham to get the views of the locals.
I think it's really good to see it up there. It's good to see a celebration of England, the country. I think there's a lot of times now we don't celebrate, and it's good to see.
I think it's pretty good, actually. It looks pretty good. Yeah. Nice to support the local saint, so to speak.
I think it's amazing. I do. I think it's absolutely amazing, and it's proud for something in our country. Oh, yeah, proud to be English, of course.
Absolutely brilliant, yeah.
Does it make you feel proud to be English?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Get in. Well, let's cross live now to Old Market Square and speak to Natalie Fay, who's the editor of Nottingham Live. Natalie, welcome to the show. Always a pleasure to have you on. I know the Old Market Square, my old stomping ground, that council house. Brian Clough lived the 2 European Cups on that balcony behind us there. That council house, Natalie, normally has flags for pride, for trans awareness, for inclusivity, for Black History Month, for disability. But when this flag came out today, the first reaction I had, Natalie, was, is it real? It's behind you. Is it real?
It's 60 foot by 26 foot, which is absolutely huge. This goes up every single year without fail. In fact, this year, it's going up for an even longer period than it was last year. I think it's just great the Nottingham City Council is celebrating everything, because we should celebrate everything. We've got a great diverse city, pride, forests, panthers, whatever it is. And the council house is a great place to display all those things. Everyone sees it, it's iconic.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, every Sunday at 9:30 when I'll be interviewing the key players in British politics and taking them to task.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial.
With an upcoming election looming over Westminster, now is the time for clear, honest answers.
I agree.
And that's precisely what I'll get.
Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's election channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News is Britain's election channel. And from Thursday,
the people decide.
As the country heads to the polls in a rush of elections,
we'll take you through the night as the first results come in.
And we'll pick up at breakfast
with the very best guests and analysis.
And on the weekend, the results won't stop, and neither will we.
We'll explore what it all means for you as we look ahead to the general election.
Continuing coverage live from Thursday at midnight on GB News.
So much coming your way on Patrick Christys tonight. We're having a little look at what on earth is going on at the Irish border. We're also going to be talking about the latest instalment of a predominantly British Pakistani rape gang. But now it's time for our head-to-head. Are you scared of Britain's youth? There's been some pretty shocking videos online recently. The kids in our country are behaving outrageously. We've seen them killing a beloved family peacock with catapults. Some pretty distressing footage here, by the way. I mean, absolutely astonishing. And a warning, this is another quite alarming video for you. We've also seen shocking scenes of machete-wielding youngsters in the Birmingham area, just brazenly wielding machetes around shops. Look, let's be honest, I mean, there's hundreds of these videos doing the rounds at the moment. We've all seen Catherine Birbalsingh, dubbed Britain's strictest head teacher, trying to clamp down on feral children. But another head teacher is making the headlines this week for his attempt to control kids. Andrew O'Neill is the head teacher at All Saints Catholic College in Ladbroke Grove. He wants 12-hour school days for his students, running from breakfast club at 7 a.m. and finishing after the homework club at 7 p.m. O'Neill says that children need to be using their time in a constructive way. So is it about time that we got tougher on feral and fearless kids? Joining me now to debate this is parenting experts S.J. Strum and Annette Callow. Great stuff. Look, Annette, I'll start with you. We've got to get tougher on kids. Some of those people with catapults are even targeting funerals, for goodness sake.
Yes, absolutely. I think we've got to remember rules run the world, which may be very hard for people to understand, but I feel like children are being let absolutely loose. We've seen the videos, we've seen the machete, we've seen the peacock video, and I also feel while you can say, oh, it's down to the parents, if the parents aren't doing anything, then what else can they do? It seems like teachers are now having to bring up children. Now, I personally think a little bit of strictness with kindness does them good, and it installs moral values, which there are zero of at the moment. And also, we all know the police do absolutely nothing about most things most of the time.
Indeed. SJ, I'll bring you into it now. For far too long in this country, we've allowed kids to rule the roost, and it's time to stop it, surely.
I think for far too long we've had tough love, and we've really tried to be very authoritarian with our children. And what we're seeing now with parents is we're trying to bring a new type of discipline to our kids, which is definitely exactly what you're saying, setting really firm boundaries, making sure that they know what discipline means and what it should be. But we also need to show some respect and get that respect back. And I think with the teacher explaining about these longer school hours, it's a lovely idea, a £10 a week after school childcare, but it's not going to say how he's actually going to address that behaviour in those extra hours at school, where we see children behaving just the same in school and those kids not getting the discipline that they want in school as well. So I think it does come down to parents, but we don't need to do such tough love. Sometimes showing our children that we model respect and then we get that respect back is another way of looking at it. It's become popular in the last 5 years with modern parents.
OK. I mean, some people might argue, Annette, that modern parenting has ruined Britain.
Well, I would say, whilst the head teacher is trying to not only install values, but he's also really worried about the screen time, which I think is not just kids looking at their phones, it's kids doing things like cyberbullying, sexting, all different variations, blackmailing. This is the things that particular head teacher found. So he was taking the action he feels appropriate. I don't think there's anything wrong with a 12-hour day. It doesn't have to be every day, but I think if they have passion and hobbies and things that they can enjoy, there's nothing wrong with that. Why should that be seen as being disrespectful? I don't think it is at all.
Yeah, I mean, I think we could just bring back up one of the catapult gang, right? Because I just want to emphasise what this lot have been doing. You know, they've gone off and been firing slingshots at peacock. They've been attacking local wildlife. They've been attacking local people. Apparently, they even targeted a funeral that was taking place. I mean, can you imagine you're burying a loved one, and these people turn up and they start firing catapults at you. I mean, SJ, lock those kids in school for 12 hours a day minimum, no?
I think it's the term locking. Of course, this is absolutely shocking, and it really paints our teens, these particular boys, who knows what they have been subjected to at home or at school, and absolutely a safe space for teens for longer in the day when they're just roaming the streets is a really great idea. And I really applaud this head teacher for trying to offer that. But it's not sustainable. You know, he's saying that he can do this for £10 a week for every single parent out there. That is not a solution that we can apply to every single teen in our country. So we need to look at our good teens. We need to stop always seeing teens as these rebels. You know, it's really painting our teens in a really bad way, which gives then we all pile on top of our teens. These are a certain small amount of children, teens who have been, maybe we don't know their circumstances, but locking children in school for 12-hour days isn't getting, that I can see, to any of the root cause for the behaviour.
I just wonder if we spend too long worrying about people's circumstances. We've got this machete clip, you know, these individuals who have, you know, rampaged into a corner shop, for example, and been wheeling a machete around. I mean, they don't care. I mean, Annette, with the best will in the world, I'm not sure a youth club would have sorted these two out.
No, I don't think a youth club will even touch the sides, to be honest. And there, of course, it's very integrated and it's personal circumstances, but it's also to do with the parents and the environment. But I feel like at least people can try. Now, me personally, I would be very worried my child being around other children that were violent or bullying, and I was specifically being very clear of what school I wanted him to go to. In fact, I would even go outside the schools before I made the choice to look at what the people looked like. And so it's a personal choice. We're allowed to do that. We're allowed to want the best for our children.
Yeah, we are allowed to want the best for our children, and it's a massive concern for a lot of parents out there as to who their children are going to be mixing with on a day-to-day basis. Look, can I thank you both very, very much for imparting some much-needed wisdom into this discussion. That is SJ Strum there and Annette Callow, both of them parenting experts. Great stuff. Thank you. Look, who do you agree with, all right? So we asked you on X, the artist formerly known as Twitter, as Britain's youth goes feral, are you afraid of kids in this country? So 68.7% of you agree that Britain's kids are scary. Well, 31.3% of you say, no, you're not afraid. Well, you're hard. All right. Look, coming up, another predominantly Pakistani-British rape gang is finally exposed. So the reporting restrictions on this have finally been lifted on the 5 trials surrounding 24 men who raped, abused and trafficked 8 young girls between 1999 and 2022 in West Yorkshire. How familiar does this sound, by the way, people? How familiar? Media mogul Kelvin McKenzie will give his take, and that shortly. But up next, are the protests that we've seen in Ireland against mass immigration, against illegal immigration, a sign that the Rwanda plan is now actually working? Leader of Reform UK, Richard Tice, well, he's going to be giving us his verdict. There's a heck of a lot to go out, and I haven't even got stuck into Humsey yet. I'll see you in a sec.
Time for your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Good evening to you. Tomorrow, more wet weather to come in parts of the west, whereas in the east, it'll start to feel fairly warm in the late April sunshine. Low pressure is still dominating, but it's kind of slow moving, and it's in these western areas where we've seen outbreaks of rain today that we will again see them tomorrow. Staying fairly damp overnight across South Wales, southwest England. The rain easing a little across parts of Scotland. The heavy showers also easing in Northern Ireland, at least for a time. Staying largely clear across East Anglia and the southeast. Temperature-wise, a bit warmer than recent nights. Most urban areas, at least, staying up at 7 to 10 degrees Celsius. On to Tuesday, and as I said, it's a bit of an east-west split. We'll start with a lot of cloud across northern England, but I'm hopeful it'll brighten up here. There will be further rain for Wales and Northern Ireland, some heavy rain as well, the yellows and the reds in there, and it's also fairly wet for parts of southwest England. Pretty gusty in these western areas as well. A few showers in western Scotland, but a good part of Scotland dry. Much of northern England, the Midlands, East Anglia and the southeast having a fine old day, and it will feel a bit warmer as well. Look at those temperatures, 17, 18, maybe even 19 Celsius, but still on the cool side where we've got the cloud and the breeze and the outbreaks of rain further west from that area of low pressure. That does pull away, allowing some warmer weather to move in over the next few days, but it is not going to be dry everywhere. There will still be some heavy rain around.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
Leading motoring organisation has called for all new drivers to be banned from giving lifts to friends for 6 whole months after passing their tests.
Yes, the AA says around 5,000 people every year are killed and seriously injured in crashes involving at least one young motorist. Graduated driving licences introduced with limitations imposed on a period of time after a driver passes their test. So a two-tier system.
Well, is this sensible or yet more ageism when it comes to regulating our habits in the United Kingdom? Let's speak to Quentin Wilson, a motoring journalist and transport campaigner. Really interested to get your thoughts on this, Quentin. There are a lot of people who instinctively will say this is state overreach. This is telling adults that they can't do something that they've done for generations. What's your view?
Well, look, the recent accident with the convertible Mini where people were twerking in the back, this is due to driver education. The person in control of that car really should have told the passengers just to buckle up and stay still. We're not teaching kids to drive properly. We expect them to do all this stuff below the dashboard, grinding of gears, hazard perception, positioning of car in this very, very small time window when we should be doing it from school age, teaching hazard perception. So I've been a patron of an organisation called Young Driver, who's delivered 1.4 million lessons to 11 to 17-year-olds on private land with ADI qualified instructors with dual controls. And the accident rate for that group is 4%. The national average is 20%. So look, we can do this, we can reduce these fatalities if we teach kids earlier about road safety.
Is this an issue, frankly, with teenage boys and showing off?
The testosterone does always seem to come through, doesn't it?
Welcome back to Patrick Christys tonight on GB News. Now, just before I go to my next guest and next topic, it has been brought to my attention during the advertising break there that something may have happened on the previous show involving some accidental fruity language, and I would like to take this opportunity to apologise for that if anybody was indeed offended. I must admit I haven't actually seen or heard of it myself, but I would just still nonetheless like to apologise for it. Now, it's time to admit, is it, that the Rwanda plan is working. The legislation to revive the UK's Rwanda policy became law on Thursday last week, but despite a single flight yet to take off, the scheme seems to be having a positive impact. It's fashionable within Westminster to criticise the Rwanda plan, following suit the likes of Suella Braverman, Robert Jenrick and much of Reform. Hey, you know what, myself at times as well. But Ireland's government are no different. They are pledging emergency legislation to send asylum seekers that cross into their country from Northern Ireland back to us here in the UK. Now, in a rather surprising and appealing turn of events, the British government has effectively told Ireland's government to do one, saying that the UK will not take back asylum seekers, illegal immigrants, from Ireland until France takes back Channel migrants. I'm joined now by the leader of Reform, Richard Symes. Richard, thank you very much. Look, very critical of the Rwanda plan, which I understand. However, we started seeing clips of illegal immigrants saying they wish they'd never come here because of Rwanda.
Oh, dream on.
And the Irish, well, they've seen it. And the Irish saying that they're seeing floods of people who don't want to be sent to Rwanda. It's working.
No, it's not. Absolute nonsense. Patrick, over 7,000 illegal migrants have crossed the Channel this year. Sadly, 15 or so have lost their lives doing so, in the knowledge that, in theory, they're going to be arrested, detained and deported to Rwanda. So, no, it's not a deterrent. And this nonsense with the Republic, there's no evidence, actually, of the numbers that the Republic are claiming. But there is a huge irony. I mean, Chris Heaton-Harris jumping around as the Northern Ireland Secretary saying that the deterrent's already working. I mean, the man's having a laugh. He must think we're all stupid, for heaven's sake. But here's the point. You're right. The irony of an EU nation claiming that actually freedom of movement in the island of Ireland, all of a sudden, that's been there for 100 years, that's now not allowed. It's very simple. If they want to send those back to the UK, then we'll send 120,000 back to France. I wonder how Macron's going to adopt to that. The whole thing, these EU nations, they need to stop being so selfish and actually focus on what works.
They are now looking, Richard, at replicating a third-party country like we're doing, which really does imply that they think that the Rwanda plan is going to work.
Absolute nonsense. Look,
there's no way they're doing it.
There's no way France is going to take 120,000 back from us, right? The only way this stops is you have to pick people up out of the boats and take them back to France, which we're legally entitled to do. No government minister has proved me wrong on this. We know it works. Belgium did it. It stopped the boats from Belgium.
Well, the government is saying that actually we don't have international waters, so we can't do it. So it would always involve us. It would always involve us having to go into French waters. She's patently wrong. And that's different to what the Australians did.
No, it's not. I've read the international treaties, as have my lawyers. We know we're right on this. But the thing about being a leader is you take your advice and then you make a decision. The government lawyers are wet, woke, lefty lawyers. Of course they're going to give the advice saying it's against the law. No, it's not. It's actually how you read the law, how you interpret the law, and have the courage of your convictions. This will not stop. This is not a deterrent. We all know that from the point I've just said. 7,000 have come here this year.
With respect, it's bad for you if Rwanda works, isn't it?
It's not going to work. We know it's not working.
But it is bad for you if it works.
It's already not working.
Right, but if it does work and planes take off and the numbers reduce, it's awful for reform UK.
It's the end of April and the numbers are up about 24, 25% this year. We know it's not working. It's a joke. One of two things will happen, right? If the flights take off, the boats will keep coming, right? Or the lefty lawyers will stop the flights taking off. Either way, it's a catastrophe for this ludicrous policy that the government has hung all of its illegal immigration policy on. And then they are absolutely flawed. And then the only solution is what we put forward. And our solution is the kind, compassionate one. It stops people dying.
OK, and one thing that I think is good to come out of this now, right, is that the people of Ireland... I feel very sorry for the actual people of Ireland, OK? I feel very sorry for them because they've been led, I think, by donkeys, and they are now finding out what, mass illegal immigration means, rapid population growth, rapid demographic change. But if people are leaving the UK, flooding across the border into...
I'll tell you what it means. It means that Ireland is even more generous than we are.
Well, they are because they let them work. They are because they let them work.
I'll tell you who I'm sorry for. I'm sorry for the British citizens, because it's us that are paying the bills, it's us that are suffering in our communities, it's our hotels that have been closed, it's our jobs that have been destroyed and smashed.
Why don't we ferry them over to Northern Ireland and buy a few hotels up on the border with the Republic and shove them all in that and wave them over?
No, what we should do is actually return them to France and stop the boats coming over. Northern Ireland is part of the United Kingdom, and look, but the job of the government is to defend our own borders. Ireland's got its own issues. Let Ireland deal with its own issues. The truth is, this whole fiasco that is killing people only stops when leaders of the United Kingdom and EU nations pick people up out of the boats and take them back to where the shores that they left, whether that's France or whether it's North Africa. That's what leadership is about, and the gutless leaders of all these nations who daren't do this, they are literally responsible for people dying. I'm sick of it. I've had enough.
Ursula von der Leyen, who we played a clip of it earlier on in the show, has done a huge amount of discussing how diversity and multiculturalism is Europe's greatest strength. Her party is now genuinely considering a third-party removal scheme. I mean, that is, whether or not you think those schemes will work, that is embarrassing for the European Union.
Oh, it is. I mean, you make it sound like Pickford's, you know, sort of. But the truth is, it's a sign of how everybody has completely lost control of illegal migration across nations. Freedom of movement is a disaster. It's one of the main reasons we left the European Union, and they've got to show some leadership. Otherwise, this carries on.
But the thing today with Christys and Harris, I genuinely thought, was good, right? Because the Irish came out with the begging bowl. The Irish reported to the ECHR over our prosecution or lack of prosecution of historic veterans, despite the fact that we gave the IRA letters of comfort.
They didn't come out with a begging bowl. They came out with an instruction. We're going to legislate, and you'll take them back.
Yeah,
that's how these EU nations treat us.
But that's good, though. We've said no to that.
You wait. Really? Do you seriously think this government is going to stand up to the Republic of Ireland and then force them give over? Given the track record we've seen...
We're not going to cave into the Republic of Ireland, surely.
We caved in over the whole Brexit negotiations to the Republic of Ireland and to the people in Brussels. Of course we'll cave in. They just haven't got it in them. No gumption, no guts.
All right, Richard, thank you very, very much. Well, there's no need to apologise. It's your views. As ever, look, Richard, thank you very much. Richard Tice there, who is the leader of Reform UK. Thank you very, very much. Look, I've got a heck of a lot coming up, including this. Yes, as you were hearing, we're not going to allow Ireland to return illegal migrants to the UK. But next, the big story, this. Huge, OK? Another predominantly Pakistani rape gang is finally exposed. Media mogul Kelvin McKenzie will give us his take on that very, very shortly. It is... I mean, look, these cases are always absolutely horrific, right? But this is one of the most horrific cases that you can possibly imagine. And it makes you wonder, doesn't it? When is this going to stop? And where in the UK, where else in the UK, is this still happening? We get stuck into that shortly. Stay tuned.
Sir Jacob Rees-Mogg's State of the Nation, Monday to Thursday from 8 p.m.
The International Monetary Fund has estimated that Russia will outgrow all advanced economies in 2024. This is in spite of all the sanctions the West has imposed on Russia, in spite of its removal of the SWIFT banking system, in spite of the fact that Germany has almost entirely weaned itself off Russian gas, and in spite of the 50,000 soldiers who have died and the endless resources it has poured into the Ukraine war. So, what are we missing here? Why is Russia going to grow more than the rest of us? Well, it's simple. Russia is willing to make use of its own energy resources to provide abundant supply to its citizens. Increased supply means lower prices, and cheap energy is inextricably linked to economic growth. But since 2008, the United States has grown at twice the rate of the United Kingdom. The big difference is that America has much lower energy prices, while the UK insists on masochistic green policies. But it's no surprise that the Green fanatics in the Scottish government, where they know how to be fanatics, have had to backtrack on their flagship greenhouse gas reduction target. The SNP has committed to reducing Scotland's CO2 emissions by 75% by 2030. Now, the Climate Change Committee has reviewed its policy and advised that the absurd reduction target is out of reach.
Can we accept the CCC's recent re-articulation that this Parliament's interim 2030 target is out of reach? We must now act to chart a course to 2045.
It is time to recognise the truth that net zero by 2050 is unrealistic and unaffordable. It's time we rid ourselves of this foolish and costly idea that will simply make people cold and poor. We need to prioritise cheap energy for Britain's consumers and for companies, for industry, enabling economic growth that will benefit us all.
GB News is the home of free speech. We were created to champion it, and we deliver it day in, day out.
Free speech allows us all to explore and debate openly the issues most important to us, our families, and of course, the British people.
Having challenging conversations to enlighten each other.
Which is why we hear all sides of the argument.
We are the People's Channel.
We will always stand by the freedom to express yourself.
On TV, radio and online.
This is GB News,
Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria Di Piero, bringing you
PMQ's live here on GB News.
Whenever Parliament is in session on a Wednesday at midday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions. We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQ's live here on GB News, Britain's election channel.
Welcome back to Patrick Christys Tonight, only on GB News. Really important story, this, because reporting restrictions have finally been lifted on the 5 trials surrounding the 24 men who raped, abused and trafficked 8 young girls between 1999 and 2022 in West Yorkshire. Over the weekend, the predators were jailed for a combined total of 346 years. Yep, that's 346 years. And after the sentencing of the last 7 men at Leeds Crown Court, we now know who was sent down. The ages of the men range from between 38 and 53, and sentences spanning from 7.5 years to 17 years behind bars. Joining me now in the studio is the former editor of The Sun, Kelvin Mackenzie. And Kelvin, this is yet another predominantly British-Pakistani grooming gang, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And I made a mistake. I tweeted that they were an Asian gang, and of course everybody then piles in and says, look, they're not Asian, you know, they don't come from Japan, they don't come from Bangladesh, they don't come from India. Actually, they came from, they were Pakistani Muslims. Yeah. And the other reason, the real reason why they haven't been named in 2 years is because a number of them are related to each other. They are first cousins, and therefore, if you reported on one, then the other family then got caught up in it. So it's been an incredible trial, and it hasn't had the publicity which it should have had.
Yeah.
Because each trial has not been dealt with separately, they've come all together. These guys, one of the guys got 30 years. A few of them got 20 years. They were the baddest of the bad. And it is shocking that mainly those men all came from Batley and the Dewsbury area. Now, of course, what happened in Batley, of course, we all know, involving the teacher whose life has been destroyed by the fact that he can't work there following showing the cartoon.
Absolutely, yeah.
And so you have to wonder to yourself, is there something... Now, whenever this is raised, there is a big hoo-ha. Is there something about one particular area of nationality, in this case Pakistani, who are attracted to this kind of action? Now, you know, you could say, well, actually, white men are attracted to fraud. You know, you can see that there becomes an argument about this kind of thing.
I mean, it's ridiculous. Men such as Asif Ali, who alone was found guilty of 14 rape offences, committed appalling sexual abuse on a scale that can barely be believed, according to this report here, saw his young victims as defenceless commodities to be abused and traded on a whim. And I wonder if that's it. I wonder if, Kelvin, there is racism taking place here, and it's actually racism
on the other side
against young, vulnerable white girls.
And nobody cared, by the way. Local council didn't care. And actually, not until the publicity, and I think there was one particular journalist on The Times who has been pursuing this story, so fantastic for him. Without him, nobody would have cared. So the council didn't care, and I must be honest with you, at some stages, and by the way, the social department, they didn't care. At some stage, the police officers, because they were scared of being deemed to be racist, they didn't get caught up in it. And in a way, I understand that. What I hope today is that with this trial finally having publicity, that every police officer, every senior police officer will say, I don't give a damn what colour you are, you know, white, black, brown, whatever, we are pursuing the law. These girls had very little in their lives. They were treated like meat, and society turned their back on them.
But it's time and time again, this is the thing.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I hope all of that is true.
Yeah.
But it's time and time and time again. And it doesn't seem to change. And this lot got away with this for the best part of, what are we talking now? 15 years? 15 years they got away with it for, unabated. And I just wonder, there is a pattern here. There is a pattern here. and it tends to be predominantly British Pakistani when it comes to the grooming guys. And what can we do about that?
Well, I would hope now, just of late, there hasn't been another scandal that has blown up, right? Since these people have been held under arrest in prisons ahead of their convictions. But you know, who's to say what can go on? Look, you try not to be racist about these kinds of things, and then you hear these appalling cases. Imagine if it had been the other way around. Imagine if we'd had 24 or 23 white people, because one of the accused, one of the convicted was white. 23 white people attacking a series of Asian or Pakistani girls. Imagine the row about that.
Look, it's right to point it out. Look, obviously, it's right to point. People always point to, you know, but because of demographics, you know, the vast majority of paedophiles in Britain will be white and are white. We've had Savile, we've had all of these people, absolutely. But there is a...
There's never been anything like this. There's never been the scale of this kind of attack on eight innocent girls, and I'm hopeful. I don't believe that this has had the publicity to which it's entitled. And there was some very good work done by a lady who works for the Mail on Sunday who collated most of this information together. I didn't see any of the other news sites doing it. And by the way, how much have you seen on the mainstream network?
This is it. And this is part of the problem. You know, when the Telford grooming gang scandal happened, which at the time I believe still is the largest grooming gang scandal ever, the BBC put it on their local Shropshire page of their BBC website. So if you wanted to find out about the country's largest grooming gang scandal for a period of time, you would have had to have gone to the local Shropshire page and look at about the third story down. And that's not due prominence, is it?
Well, doesn't that actually chime in with that earlier guest that you had on there talking about how the BBC, how employees within the BBC looked upon certain stories as not to be covered?
Yeah, I mean, no doubt the BBC would deny that there's any kind of agenda there. All I would ask is, and for society, it goes to the police and the media, you know, how many more times do we have to see this? How many more vulnerable, young, predominantly working class, very underprivileged white girls have to be treated like pieces of meat before the nation stands up and addresses this issue? Look, I've got another story I'd like to squeeze in with you, just moving on a little bit, Kelvin. Is the government right to clamp down on people claiming benefits using mental health problems to do so? So the government has essentially said now that we have too many people off on benefits, etc., and that too many people are using mental health as a way of claiming the benefits.
Well, if you get one of those PIP benefit payments, you get an extra £83 a week, and you never need to be tested. Yeah, or when I say that's not quite true, but the tests are on an irregular basis, so the money comes in. The question really is, why has there been such an explosion? And the reason that there's such an explosion is because if you say, I have mental health problems, by the way, say it at work as well. You watch the bosses all start running around, whoa, mental health, oh, shocking. Right. If you say, I'm suffering from anxiety or depression, then, honestly, who is to say that you're not suffering from it?
I feel really sorry for people who might be watching this now who have a physical... They would love to work, but have some kind of physical disability and can't or whatever, or the people who have very genuine, and there are very, very genuine cases of people really struggling with their mental health. I know that all too well. I feel really sorry for them because I think there's a load of people on the take who are giving them a bad name.
Right. So... yes. So Rishi, who's not a particularly popular guy, but he got it right, I think, when he said today, he said that people are gaming the system. And why is it that the mental health seems to have exploded since COVID? What is it about going to work that causes you a problem? Surely you should go to work, actually, to stop you worrying about everything. And where does anxiety and the normal run-of-the-mill problems of life, like the bills are too high, I'm not making enough money, why does the missus hate me? You know, all the normal aspects of
Might be normal for you, that, Kelvin, but I'm quite lucky in that regard.
You ask the viewers. There'll be more of them on my side.
Yeah, I'm sure there will be. Look, Kelvin, thank you very much. Great stuff, as ever. That is Kelvin McKenzie there, former editor of The Sun. Look, coming up, we've got a bit of this.
certainly when you look across the Commonwealth, there's no way that we can move forward unless we acknowledge the past.
Well, Harry and Meghan are doing a fake royal tour of Nigeria. What do you make of that? The editor-at-large at the Mail on Sunday, Charlotte Griffiths, will join me to share more on the couple's latest news. But next... Yes, I am having a look at what has been a fantastic day for Britain, culminating in the fact that we have now told Ireland to swivel over the ridiculous notion that we might take back illegal immigrants that have wandered across the border. Rule Britannia, I'll see you in a sec.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Time for your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Good evening to you. Tomorrow, more wet weather to come in parts of the west, whereas in the east, it'll start to feel fairly warm in the late April sunshine. Low pressure is still dominating, but it's kind of slow moving, and it's in these western areas where we've seen outbreaks of rain today that we will again see them tomorrow. Staying fairly damp overnight across South Wales, southwest England. The rain easing a little across parts of Scotland. The heavy showers also easing in Northern Ireland, at least for a time. Staying largely clear across East Anglia and the southeast. Temperature-wise, a bit warmer than recent nights. Most urban areas, at least, staying up at 7 to 10 degrees Celsius. On to Tuesday, and as I said, it's a bit of an east-west split. We'll start with a lot of cloud across northern England, but I'm hopeful it'll brighten up here. There will be further rain for Wales and Northern Ireland, some heavy rain as well, the yellows and the reds in there, and it's also fairly wet for parts of southwest England. Pretty gusty in these western areas as well. A few showers in western Scotland, but a good part of Scotland dry. Much of northern England, the Midlands, East Anglia and the southeast having a fine old day, and it will feel a bit warmer as well. Look at those temperatures, 17, 18, maybe even 19 Celsius, but still on the cool side where we've got the cloud and the breeze and the outbreaks of rain further west from that area of low pressure. That does pull away, allowing some warmer weather to move in over the next few days, but it is not going to be dry everywhere. There will still be some heavy rain around.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall?
Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
You really could be our next big winner with an incredible £20,000 in tax-free cash to play with this summer. What would you spend that on? Well, whilst you're thinking about it, listen to some of our previous winners getting that winning phone call from us.
You're the winner of the Great British Giveaway.
I'm slipping it. Oh dear.
Oh my God, are you joking?
You're joking. Really? Seriously, it's not a wind-up, is it?
Oh my God, this is amazing. Thank you.
The next winning call could be answered by you. For a chance to win £20,000 in tax-free cash, text WIN to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB05 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 31st of May. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
GB News is Britain's election channel. And from Thursday,
the people decide.
As the country heads to the polls in a rush of elections.
We'll take you through the night as the first results come in.
And we'll pick up at breakfast
with the very best guests and analysis.
And on the weekend, the results won't stop, and neither will we.
We'll explore what it all means for you as we look ahead to the general election.
Continuing coverage live from Thursday at midnight on GB News.
We're GB News, and we come from a proud tradition of British journalism.
That's why I'm so excited to be here. It's something so new.
The first news channel to be launched in Britain in over 30 years.
Launched to represent the views of the British people.
To go where other broadcasters refuse to go.
How did you find out about the story in the first place?
Launched with one aim.
To be the fearless champion of Britain.
It's an absolutely fantastic atmosphere here.
This is GB News.
GB News, Britain's news channel.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall?
Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
It's 10 p.m. I'm Patrick Christys. Tonight. We will not allow Ireland to return illegal immigrants to the UK. Illegals are using kids as human shields, and this is a classic.
Your cities and regions are the engine of change in our continent, the place where identity meets inclusion.
Oh yeah? Well, you reap what you sow, don't you? Open calls for a caliphate in Germany. No wonder the EU wants to copy Rwanda and...
Certainly when you look across the Commonwealth, there's no way that we can move forward unless we acknowledge the past.
What do you make of Harry and Meghan's fake royal tour of Nigeria? And this was Friday.
Oh, I won't be resigning. I'll be fighting that vote of no confidence, and I think we'll win it.
This was today.
I have therefore informed the SNP's National Secretary of my intention to stand down as party leader.
Useless Yusuf has gone. On my panel, it's Express columnist Carol Malone, darling of the left Benjamin Butterworth, and political commentator Susan Evans. Oh yes, and would you eat this? Get ready, Britain. Here we go. A huge victory for Brexit Britain. Bye-bye illegal immigrants. Next.
Good evening, I'm Ray Addison in the GB newsroom, and we start with some breaking news in the United States. Multiple police officers have been shot in Charlotte, North Carolina. The local police department has issued a statement saying that the shooting began as officers from the US Marshals Task Force were carrying out an investigation. The scene is being described as still active. They're urging local residents to remain indoors. Local media report at least one officer has been killed. Multiple victims have been transported to hospital. Now, the SNP is preparing for a leadership contest after the Scottish First Minister announced his resignation. Humza Yousaf's admitted he underestimated the level of upset that he would cause by cutting political ties with the Greens. He'll now continue in his post until a replacement is found. Clearly emotional, Mr Yousaf said he's quitting to help repair relationships across the political divide.
No ill will and certainly bear no grudge against anyone. Politics can be a brutal business. It takes its toll on your physical and mental health. Your family suffer alongside you. I am in absolute debt to my wonderful wife, my beautiful children, and my wider family for putting up with me over the years. I'm afraid you'll be seeing a lot more of me from now.
Well, the race to replace Humza Yousaf starts now. Former Deputy First Minister John Swinney says he's considering it carefully.
I've got lots of things to think about. There's the whole question of my family, and I have to make sure that I do the right thing by my family. They're precious to me. I have to do the right thing by my party and by my country. So there's lots to be thought about, and I'll give all of that consideration in the days to come.
And the Northern Ireland Secretary says the government is surprised by how quickly its Rwanda plan appears to be working. Speaking at a British-Irish conference in London, Chris Heaton-Harris said they hadn't expected the deterrent effect to begin before flights took off. Comes after the Irish government said it's seen an 80% increase in asylum seekers entering from Northern Ireland. They want to return them to the United Kingdom, but the government is saying that will only be possible if we can send small boat migrants back to the EU.
It was always going to be the case. We believed as a government that our Rwanda policy would act as a deterrent for people coming to this country illegally. I think we are slightly surprised that it's manifested itself so quickly after the Act became law, and we are now in the process of making sure that we are gathering those individuals who could qualify for the first flight to beyond that first flight.
Well, for all our top stories, sign up to GB News Alerts by scanning the QR code on your screen or go to gbnews.com/alerts. Back now to Patrick.
Good evening. Today is a great day for Britain. Humza Yousaf has resigned. The EU is copying our Rwanda plan, which has completely shafted the Labour Party, and we've told Ireland that they can't send illegal immigrants back to us. Winner, winner, chicken dinner. I feel very sorry for the people of Ireland that they've been led by woke, idiotic donkeys. The High Court decided to declare Britain as an unsafe country, so they couldn't return illegal immigrants in case we sent them to Rwanda. Well, migrant hotels started springing up everywhere. Their country is now an illegal immigrant dumping ground, and the native Irish people are absolutely fuming, and rightly so. So, now they want to change the law back so Britain is a safe country and they can send them back to us. But we decided to tell them to swivel.
Agreement on returns. I mean, we've been told all the way through since we left the European Union that the UK must deal with the European Union as a whole entity. And so anything on returns has to be dealt with on that basis.
Oh, you hate to see it, don't you? Good. You reap what you sow. Leo Varadkar's soft touch on illegal immigration has ruined his country, many people would argue, and now he's getting shouted at in the street.
Yeah,
It's quite a lot of swearing there, actually, as it turned out. And UFC star Conor McGregor wants to start some kind of military fight back. Here we have human worms in positions of power. It's closing in on the time to activate officially. OK. Our government should fill every single bed and breakfast and hotel on the Irish border with illegal immigrants and then just watch as they make their way into the Republic of Ireland. I feel very sorry for the Irish people. I feel very sorry for them. They don't deserve this. But their politicians need to be taught a lesson. And the European Union has shafted itself on this as well. So now Ursula von der Leyen's own party has backed a Rwanda-style plan. This Ursula von der Leyen
is a land of amazing cities. Places with a strong character that you can feel at every corner and in every square, but also places where everyone feels at home. I want Europe to be like its cities. A union where it doesn't matter what you look like, who you love, how you pray, and where you were born.
All right, now then this happens. Yeah, I mean, it's only a group of rabid Islamists in Hamburg wanting an Islamic caliphate in Europe. And all of a sudden, she's sending people to third countries. Again, you reap what you sow. Keir Starmer must be bricking it because he said this, hasn't he?
If the Supreme Court rules it is legal and flights to Rwanda begin to take off and the numbers crossing the channel on small boats decline, i.e. so it's working, would you still reverse it?
Yes.
Why?
I think it's the wrong policy. It's hugely expensive. It's a tiny number,
All right. Well, it looks like it might be working. OK, early days, though. It looks like it might be working. And what if the entire European Union starts doing it? That's the crucial point. What if the European Union starts doing it? He's been completely shafted by this. Look, Humza's gone. The EU looks ridiculous. Woke Irish politicians have come to us with their begging bowl out, and Keir Starmer might have to U-turn on Rwanda. It's only Monday. What a start to the week. Let's get the thoughts of my panel this evening. It is Daily Express columnist Carol Malone. I also have journalist and commentator Benjamin Butterworth, and, of course, political commentator Suzanne Evans. Carol, Rule Britannia.
You're on a roll tonight, love. You're doing
It's
good.
a great day.
No, you're doing good. Was there a question there or not?
Not really.
No, okay.
Yeah, I mean, look, first of all, I was telling the Irish where to go when it comes to
Do you know what?
selling as legal.
There must be ruining the day, Ireland, that it and the EU insisted on a border because it's done for them. You know, the people are pouring through this border that they insisted upon. And the bottom line is Ireland is an EU member state. So the policy is to remove people to the safe country from whence they came. That is EU policy.
They declared
that
it
is what they're going to have to follow. And they do have a cheek, don't they? I mean, it's funny, really. I mean, it's hard not to laugh. That, you know, that they, as you said before, that the High Court ruled not too very long ago that the UK was not a safe country precisely because of its Rwanda policy. But what gets me is, you know, Labour and the Lords for months now have been saying that this wouldn't work. It's clear it's not even implementing it. The planes haven't started taking off, and already it's working because everyone's flocking to Ireland. So
I think he's got a chance. I think it's obvious he's got a very good chance.
Well, this is a good chance before the planes have taken off. Imagine how many people it's... And it was, Patrick, it was only ever supposed to be a deterrent, and it's working already as a deterrent.
Keir Starmer might end up really, really shafted by this. If the European Union do something that is basically the Rwanda plan on a bigger scale, and it's been a bit of a deterrent here, does he really reverse that?
Well, first of all, he said in that clip that you showed that if the numbers of small boats coming over fall, would he return it? Would he change it? Would he reverse it, pardon me? Well, the number of small boats are not falling. The first 4 months of this year have had the highest numbers that we've ever recorded. Just in the last week, you've had between 300 and 500 a day coming over. And so the numbers have not been affected. Now, when the Irish minister told their parliament that 80% had come from the UK, she did not say that that was in the last few days. So there's no evidence that it's related to the passing of the Rwanda bill at all. That is political opportunism.
The Irish have mentioned that Rwanda was having an impact.
Yeah, but I've looked it up, and they didn't say that that is something that they were not referring to the last week. And can I just say that this has cost £500 million, right? That is an enormous amount of money for what will be at most a couple of hundred days.
If the EU do it?
The enormous amount of money, can I just say, the enormous amount of money is the resettlement and rehousing bill that we pay every year for the people who come here, which is nearly £6 billion. So that's just as much as the Rwanda plan. But it's interesting that the European People's Parliament, the biggest group in the European Parliament, have actually, so the People's Party, they said last week that they wanted a Rwanda-style plan. They wanted a third safe country. So Starmer's going to look really stupid. And it's not just Starmer that said it. Yvette Cooper has stated categorically that the Rwanda plan...
Lots of people want a Rwanda-style plan. I mean, you know, one phrase I keep thinking about, just listening to this story, is karma is a... We all know what.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes. And this is exactly what's happening. You know, for months we've had in this country, we've had the government saying we're not going to listen to the European courts. And now, here we are, Ireland wants to overturn the decision of its High Court. Where is the outrage? Why is nobody complaining? Oh, well, because Ireland are on the right side and it's only Brexit Britain that's nasty and horrible.
I feel very sorry for the people of Ireland. I feel very sorry for them.
I do too, because they're seeing what we have been having to live with for quite some time.
They didn't want this.
It's not their fault. But there is a certain delicious irony, I'm afraid, in what has happened. And, yeah, Rule Britannia, Patrick, you know, it's
and good on Sunak for saying there's no way that we're going to take them back. Good on it for once.
Starmer is looking very stupid on this. His comments were ridiculous, and that could potentially loosen the election. If this policy works, if we see flights getting off the ground
and other countries adopt it,
inflation's going to be absolutely. Inflation's going to be coming down. Interest rates. the government's going to be looking better. Starmer, if he sticks to his mettle on that, is going to be looking very...
Two things are very, I would argue now, really quite likely in the next few months, that the European Union will start turning more boats back in the Mediterranean, and that there will be some kind of third country agreement. And that will make a lot of people feel very stupid. The other thing I would just like to ask you, another reason why I think it's been a good day, Benjamin. Humza Yousaf's gone. A rejection for the kind of ideology that you stand for.
Well, I certainly don't stand for Scottish independence. That's not my particular view.
That's true.
But look,
I think that was well down his list of priorities, let's be honest.
I think Humza Yousaf clearly wasn't able to be an effective politician at communicating. But the fact that he stood up against hate and he stood up against bigotry, I think in the era of politics we're in, where you've had nasty pieces of work like Boris Johnson and Liz Truss, I think he was a beacon of hope for those people.
Stuck up against hate. He's caused a lot of hatred in Scotland by getting people to spy on each other in their own homes and report it to the police. That hate crime bill does exactly that.
And I think you should report people who are bigots. I think that's absolutely how a civil...
Whose view are they a bigot? If they don't agree with an ideology, which is what the trans movement, it's an ideology. If you don't agree with it, it is an ideology.
It's not. It's how some people exist.
It is not proven in medical or scientific fact.
Is your heterosexuality an ideology? It's just these are facts of how humans are built.
Not my heterosexuality. My sex is a biological fact. So when someone says a trans woman is a woman, no, she is not. It's a man.
Suzanne, Humza Yousaf has gone.
He's gone, yes, amazingly. I knew he'd gone when he said that he wasn't going to go, because it was so obvious that he was in such a corner. He'd got nowhere to go. He was going to lose this vote of no confidence. And,
it's very funny over the weekend. He made in his speech today, he made it sound like he was resigning for the people of Scotland. He was begging the other leaders over the weekend, Labour and Tory, to help him out of this, because he needed one major
Alex Salmond is correct. I am aware that, because we're going to give you all of tomorrow's front pages in about 15 minutes' time, I'm aware there's probably going to be a lot of that on there. But just whilst we're on this, Alex Salmond, whether or not this is true, we will never know, but was saying that Humza Yousaf was on the phone to the Albert Party as late as 7:30 this morning, which implies that, he was quite desperate. And I also thought it was remarkable how he managed to crowbar in multiculturalism and diversity from the first few lines of his resignation thing. I thought, look, just know when you're beaten. But anyway, look, coming up, we will have tomorrow's papers tonight. We'll probably be a bit more Humza chat in that, if you're not sick of it. And next, Harry and Meghan, though, they're set to visit Nigeria next month after the Duchess of Sussex learnt about her heritage. Yeah, so apparently she's 43% Nigerian. Apparently. Well, yeah, exactly. So she's got to go. And they're going to be engaging in cultural things. So there we go. The editor-at-large at the Mail on Sunday, Charlotte Griffiths, will join me to share more of the couple's latest, I would argue, fake royal stuff. It's Patrick Christys now on GBNews.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
King Charles is well known for his views on climate change, and apparently he's now taking steps to make sure that his Sandringham estate is more eco-friendly. Well, it's been reported that the King is planning to have 2,000 solar panels installed on that estate, and it's set to make the estate largely self-sufficient with a supply of its own green electricity. Well, joining me now is former Royal correspondent, the absolute legend, that is Michael Cole. Michael, twice in 2 days, I feel blessed. Look, King Charles has long been talking up his eco-credentials. Some may uncharitably compare him to Greta Thunberg in a tweed suit. It's one thing, however, to be self-sufficient in energy, but got to be said, solar panel farms, they're hardly eco-friendly, are they? They destroy environments. What's your take?
I certainly agree with that. The King has indeed, as you say, Martin, and good afternoon to you, applied for planning permission. Now, this is going to be a bit of a mini solar farm, 2,000 solar panels on a site of 2 hectares. And as he has the Sandringham estate, 20,000 acres, 4 acres isn't going to be very much, and it's nowhere near where he lives at Sandringham House. Now, these things, which we're seeing on the screen, are hugely controversial up here. A monster one is being planned on the borders between Suffolk and Cambridge, and the people there really despise it. As they say quite rightly, is this grade A agricultural land being turned over to this semi-industrial use and spoiling the look of the countryside and changing it in a negative way.
GB News is the home of free speech. We were created to champion it, and we deliver it day in, day out.
Free speech allows us all to explore and debate openly the issues most important to us, our families, and of course, the British people.
Having challenging conversations to enlighten each other.
Which is why we hear all sides of the argument.
We are the People's Channel.
We will always stand by the freedom to express yourself.
On TV, radio and online.
This is GB News,
Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall?
Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
OK, welcome back to Patrick Christys tonight. We're only on GB News, and it's time for the latest Sussex spin-off. Yes, the rival Royal Road show, as Prince Harry and Meghan Markle have announced their first non-official royal tour of Nigeria. Everyone's favourite couple have been invited by Nigeria's Chief of Defence Staff to take part in cultural activities, and their upcoming trip is linked to their work with the Invictus Games, as they are expected to meet military servicemen and women. Meghan is particularly excited, as she revealed several times, actually, that she is 43% Nigerian. But in true Sussex style, there are those who are not a fan of their decision, with some royal experts accusing the couple of trying to have their cake and eat it as they play the royal card. And a surprise update for another royal tonight as well. The Duchess of Edinburgh has become the first member of the royal family to visit Ukraine since Russia's invasion. So there we go, some stuff there about the Duchess of Edinburgh. Joining me now is editor-at-large at the Mail on Sunday, Charlotte Griffith. Charlotte, thank you very, very much. Right then, what's going on here with this fake royal tour of Nigeria? Are they trying to get a one-up on the royal family somehow?
Of course they are. They never do anything but try and get a one-up on the royal family. But I think what they're really doing is that, on paper, they're trying to celebrate 10 years of Invictus Games, and Nigeria are set to host it in the future and are trying to woo them so that they can host it in the future. So that's the official reason. But let's face it, the real reason is because they need content for Netflix. They want to appear as quasi-royals. They want to carry on conducting quasi-tours as if they're still members of the royal family. You know, and I think the fact they're going to a Commonwealth country when they describe the Commonwealth as Empire 2.0 is a little bit rich, and it's just a real shame because, you know, she had an opportunity to actually be really important in the Commonwealth when she was a member of the royal family, and this was an honour bestowed upon her by the Queen. But she turned her back on that, and now she's going to go to Nigeria, and I just hope she doesn't drip poison in their ears about our royal family.
Well, Harry has gone on record essentially saying we can't move forward here before we apologise or any of that stuff. So I would imagine, is Harry on an international simping tour here to Nigeria?
Yeah, it's all really incendiary stuff, you know, and it is a diplomatic situation he's wading into. Completely unguarded, unscripted. I mean, you know...
Uneducated, probably.
Uneducated. I mean, that's actually a really good point, you know. He makes huge clangers all the time. I just think the royal family right now, they think, really rolling their eyes, but also more seriously, genuinely a bit worried about this. You know, it could be a disaster.
I wondered about whether or not they're keen to have a contrast between when William and Kate were quite poorly received in the Caribbean, OK, and the optics of that, and now whether they're going to get, you know, a different reception in Nigeria. That might make them look great.
Yeah, I think Meghan and Harry will get stuck in on the ground, as it were. So Kate and William were standing in an open-top car in sort of, you know, William was wearing military uniform, and of course the shaking the hands through the fence. So, and that was choreographed. And to be honest, the Queen actually influenced a lot of that. So I feel a bit bad for William and Kate, because she wanted to sort of recreate that sort of 50s iconic moment. Anyway, so of course Meghan and Harry will have learnt from that and will not do that. And if anything, will try and probably stir up that memory. I think that's a really good point. And make themselves look like they're sort of the people. And Meghan is very keen to tell as many people as possible that she's 43% Nigerian. So she'll be making that point a few times, I would have thought.
Yeah, she will, and she indeed has done. So you think this is basically just a content-gathering situation. Harry is himself coming to the UK. She's not coming with him. So some people would argue she's not actually here for the stuff that really matters. If it is all for the Invictus Games, why isn't she coming with him here to this country?
Yeah, I think she's not coming because she knows she'll get booed or get a bad reception. But it's so sad. I think she should support Harry because he'll be so lonely there. We know that no senior members of the royal family are going to be there, of course. I mean, it's sort of a given, but also I think that it's going to be really stark. You know, that's where his parents got married. It's going to be a very sombre and senior
What is
event.
this for? Just remind our viewers and listeners, there's an event, is it at St Paul's, is that right?
So it's at St Paul's Cathedral to commemorate, to mark 10 years of Invictus Games. So it's really important, you know, part of Harry's sort of soul, really, and exactly the kind of thing he'd want his wife, maybe even his kids, by his side for. But Meghan is leaving him alone, and I think he's going to cast a really lonely portrait of a man without his friends around him, without his family, and without senior members of the royal family, and no wife there with him.
Apparently they're saying that no senior members of the royal family have got plans to see him at all. I mean, he could be here for as long as a week. It remains to be seen, but he could be here for around a week, and apparently none of them want to see him.
No, and he's staying in a hotel. He's not staying in a royal residence. I don't think he'll be here for a week. I think he'll be here a couple of days. I mean, honestly, I actually just don't think Meghan lets him out of her sight that often for that long. I think a couple of days is all he'll manage. He may try and catch a friend while he's here, but he doesn't always do that anymore. You know, last time he was here in February, he turned it around within hours. And then he'll fly off to Nigeria, where he'll be joined by Meghan. So she will be, you know, in Montecito, prepping her outfits and getting all ready for this show-stopping tour, but she didn't join him, as you say, for the bit that it really mattered.
Yeah, I just find that absolutely remarkable. Obviously, I think, well, and this is a genuine point, I do think that the Invictus Games is actually, like, a great thing.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And it really is something that Harry has done incredibly well, actually. And I just wonder if it just appears to me that, you know, she's tagging along with him for the Nigeria bit, and that's great. But, you know, is she really willing to support him when he comes back to the UK for the difficult bit? He supported her through the difficult bit. He behaved like a lapdog during Oprah and all of that.
Yeah, and it will be difficult for her. If she was to come to the UK, it would be really difficult. It would bring up terrible memories of the past for her and awkward moments when she was in various, you know, churches and things. But, you know, she's a strong and tough woman. We know that about her, and she's always telling us how brave she is. So if I were her, I'd be brave and walk up those steps. It would look great for her Netflix show anyway, so, you know.
You could spin that a million different ways, absolutely. Charlotte, thank you very much. Great stuff. That's Charlotte Griffiths, the editor-at-large at The Mail on Sunday. Look, coming up, what do you want, Barbie, at your wedding? Margot Robbie's back in the news. I'll reveal all very, very shortly. But next, tomorrow's newspaper front pages have landed, and I'll be joined by my press pack to get stuck right into them, so I'll see you soon.
Time for your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Good evening to you. Tomorrow, more wet weather to come in parts of the west, whereas in the east, it'll start to feel fairly warm in the late April sunshine. Low pressure is still dominating, but it's kind of slow moving, and it's in these western areas where we've seen outbreaks of rain today that we will again see them tomorrow. Staying fairly damp overnight across South Wales, southwest England. The rain easing a little across parts of Scotland. The heavy showers also easing in Northern Ireland, at least for a time. Staying largely clear across East Anglia and the southeast. Temperature-wise, a bit warmer than recent nights. Most urban areas, at least, staying up at 7 to 10 degrees Celsius. on to Tuesday, and as I said, it's a bit of an east-west split. We'll start with a lot of cloud across northern England, but I'm hopeful it'll brighten up here. There will be further rain for Wales and Northern Ireland, some heavy rain as well, the yellows and the reds in there, and it's also fairly wet for parts of southwest England. Pretty gusty in these western areas as well. A few showers in western Scotland, but a good part of Scotland dry. Much of northern England, the Midlands, East Anglia and the southeast having a fine old day, and it will feel a bit warmer as well. Look at those temperatures, 17, 18, maybe even 19 Celsius, but still on the cool side where we've got the cloud and the breeze and the outbreaks of rain further west from that area of low pressure. That does pull away, allowing some warmer weather to move in over the next few days, but it is not going to be dry everywhere. There will still be some heavy rain around.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan, Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks, the admission's free.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
OK, welcome back to Patrick Christys tonight. It's time for the very first of tomorrow's front pages. Let's do it. OK, we start with the Times. SNP lurches into another crisis as its leader quits. Labour poised to profit amid race to succeed. Yusuf, it's a good angle, that. We'll talk about that. Has this definitely handed the keys to Downing Street to Keir Starmer? Let's go to the Metro. You've only got Yusuf to blame. SNP crisis as leader quits in tears. Well, there we are. The PIP disability benefit could be cut using new system with 6 tiers. This is about the government's desire to get loads of people off benefits, basically, save the taxpayer a bob or two. So we'll be talking about that. Just go to the Daily Mail. The fall of Humza useless means independence is dead for a generation. The only legacy of the SNP is decline and decay. Andrew Neil has written that. We've also got all schools warned on sextortion epidemic. Foreign gangs are blackmailing hundreds of children over intimate pictures online. Good grief. Teachers were given an unprecedented alert yesterday about pupils being targeted in sextortion scams. And Meghan won't join Harry in the UK. We've already covered that. Let's go to the Telegraph. Yusuf exit triggers battle for SNP. They also go, sex is a biological fact, NHS declares. A victory for Common Sense. Today's been a great day, you know. Today's been a great day. The Guardian, Yusuf quits as First Minister after coalition gamble triggers SNP crisis. I'm not really sure if it was a gamble or whether it was just complete and utter idiocy. So, look, those are your front pages. Look, just before I go to the panel, I do want to bring you some quite disturbing stuff that's coming out of North Carolina at the moment. I think we have a bit of video for it. Several police officers have sadly been shot in North Carolina. So apparently an armoured vehicle was driving through and, yeah, here we go. So this is the aftermath of the situation. So, yeah, apparently several officers have been shot, unfortunately. You know, people were out and about. An armoured vehicle was knocking over recycling bins. Officers removed a person with blood on their shirt. It's all very, very chaotic at the moment. But, look, there's essentially been a mass shooting, it appears, involving multiple different police officers in North Carolina. And these are the latest footage from us. It appears to have involved a vehicle. Apparently, the North Carolina's Regional Fugitive Task Force, which is in Charlotte, said that in 6 years, the regional task force has apprehended more than 8,900 fugitives. This, of course, is just the latest example of something that's gone on there. Officers from several agencies were carrying out an operation in the residential area when a subject began firing at them. Multiple officers were shot. So there we go. All right, that's the latest from North Carolina. I'm going to return with my panel now. Let's keep it UK. Let's obviously talk about Hamza Yusuf, I think, really. I mean, this guy failed upwards more than anyone ever, Carol, as far as I can tell. And yeah, it's ridiculous.
Complete incompetent. You know, he was warned by colleagues in the SNP about this coalition with the Greens. It's an extremist party. And even the SNP realised this would not be good, and he just ignored them and went on. And the other thing he did was slavishly follow Sturgeon's agenda. It was a flawed agenda, and people came to the conclusion quite quickly it was because he didn't have an agenda of his own. He's not the brightest tool in the box. And the thing is, you know, to know people, he promised he was going to sort housing, he was going to sort the National Health Service, he was going to sort education. He did none of that. He just pursued this crazy dream of independence and the Hate Crime Act, which the Scottish people did not and do not want.
I mean, people... Susan, I'll come to you on this before I go to Benjamin. You know, people wanted things like NHS waiting times down. They wanted their infrastructure sorting. They wanted their day-to-day lives to be actively improved. And instead, this guy decided to focus on quite fringe radical policies.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty obvious to most people who look at it, you know, without dispassionately, that he seemed to care more about Gaza than Scotland. He pushed this agenda of woke stuff. You remember that famous speech he made when he criticised most of the major public service, the white speech, the famous white speech. Yes, so-and-so's white. So just
not
ridiculous.
Understanding that 96% of the 5 million population were white.
Absolutely allowed men to go to male rapists to go to women's prisons. As Carol says, the Orwellian Hate Crime Act, where you could basically be subject to a 7-year prison sentence for saying your opinions in your own home. But interestingly, of course, he avoided that vote on gay marriage too, didn't he? Because that didn't accord with his own religion. So even his own woke...
Well, he had a very important meeting that day, you know. But Benjamin, I suppose the one positive, maybe, I don't know how you feel about this, is that... I think this is almost... I mean, it's been a massive benefit to Labour. Huge boost to Labour, this.
Yeah, I mean, look, you know, I think Hamza Yusuf clearly lacked the mettle of leadership, regardless of party. Can you believe he's still in his 30s? So his political career is over. Yeah, he turned 39 just a couple of weeks ago. So I'm sorry, but, you know, no offence, but nationalism clearly isn't good for you, frankly. The thing is that I think what we've seen between the Tories and between the SNP is that when you put ideologues in a position of power, then you don't get any of the things solved that people actually need in their day-to-day lives.
I think that's...
You know, you're not going to like this, but I think he's, you know, a Scottish Liz Truss. I don't think he was obsessed with the detail that will help people's lives. And,
well, I think Liz Truss... I think that's the difference. Liz Truss was obsessed with detail that will help people's lives. You can't compare Hamza Yusuf and Liz Truss.
You can, because they were ideologues who didn't know how to do politics, who didn't understand the countries that they were running. And, you know, we're looking at, well, we will have 3 First Ministers in 2 years, which is actually a more ridiculous record than Westminster.
It's interesting, though, because John Swinney, they're trying to shoe him into the position. But Kate Forbes was the one who nearly won the election last time. The Scottish people liked Kate Forbes. The SNP liked Kate Forbes, and who was smart and others.
Can I just reveal something about John Swinney, right? So obviously I was in the office earlier today, so I was covering the 12 till 3. I was in there, just between you and me, right? And so we got wind at, like, 9:30, 10 o'clock this morning that John Swinney was going to do a press conference afterwards. So we knew that was happening. This is way before Hamza Yusuf has resigned, right? So we're all waiting on tenterhooks. And then eventually the press conference comes, and it's not a conference. He comes out like he's just, like, people have almost doorstepped him. He's not. He's called them all there, right? And he goes, I'm considering it. I'm really considering it. We know that you called that press conference. You called it, like you had an announcement to make. Everyone why do you think we were there? No one thought, oh, I was going to check on John Swinney.
But that's so interesting because... Yeah, it's really interesting to have that background, because I watched that speech and I didn't know what you've just told us. But I thought, oh, well, this is a leadership speech. I'm a family man. I am loyal to my party. I care about my country. Of course he's going to run.
But it's interesting. Yusuf over the weekend was on his speech, he said that it had been bad for his mental health and bad for his family. He was begging people over the weekend to help him keep his job. And it's interesting, you know, you say that Labour might, this is going to be good for Labour. You know, he was slating, him and the SNP were slating Labour as a right-wing Brexit party.
Yeah.
And remember, he also said he wanted to drive the Tories out of Scotland. So he had no help from them.
I think on the question of who will replace him, Carol mentions Kate Forbes,
Yes,
which was
she
the
was very
person who
popular.
lost to him, who was more socially
Narrowly.
conservative. I think her chances are very slim because the Greens, who are the essential coalition party, the only one they can form a government with, have already said they won't work with her. So I think that's off the cards.
But they're not a good party for Scotland. They were trying to cut carbon emissions by 75% by
it's mad.
2030.
But it's also,
Is this it for independence? Is this it for independence?
Yeah, I think it is, because as Carol just alluded to, you know, the Greens, they also want to, of course, stop drilling for oil and gas in the North Sea. Now, that is what Scotland's economy is based on. So you try and take that out of the... Then, of course, independence is off the cards.
But you make
because
a
the
good point.
country's got no economic basis.
He made some inexplicable decisions. Going on a family holiday to Qatar just a couple of months... seriously, bonkers. So just a couple of months after Hamas, Qatar, which houses Hamas leaders... Yeah, as you know, rampage through Israel like that. Oh, absolutely tone-deaf and completely idiotic.
But also, Patrick, tone-deaf here. He said in his speech today, independence feels frustratingly close. What planet are we living on? The Union has never been safer than it is tonight.
Yeah, and I think, you know, you open your show saying it's a good day for Britain. Well, I think it is, because the United Kingdom has not been safer at any point in the last 10 years than it is today.
I agree. Yeah, well, I would agree. I said it, but yeah. We've got the story. It's a great idea, that, babe. I was saying for that. No. All right, OK, now, get this. So the bridesmaids... outshining the bride. Well, that probably would happen if you invite Margot Robbie to your wedding. So Margot Robbie is the real-life Barbie, OK? I'm sure most of you know who she is. She took centre stage as she celebrated her best friend's wedding at the weekend. It was all a big secret, apparently. Robbie arrived in Queensland and the cameras were all over her instead of the bride. Awkward, isn't it? On a brighter note, they probably didn't have to fork out too much for the photographers. Of course, this would never happen to me because no one could possibly upstage Emily Benjamin. That's right, isn't it?
Well, that's so
Absolutely.
true. Absolutely right.
It's also why I have such ugly friends, so that I never have that problem.
Hang on a minute, I thought OK, all right.
Walked in.
All right, walked into it. Right, OK, look, coming up, my favourite moment of the show, because I get to crown tonight's greatest Britain and Union jackasses, but I will be bringing you even more of tomorrow's newspaper front pages, plus a little bit more on this. We will be eating that live on this... No, we won't, don't worry. Welcome back to Patrick Christys tonight. I'm off now, see you in a bit.
Dubes & Co. Weekdays from 6 p.m.
Organisations, plural, because there's loads of people doing this, that organisations are charging schools to be part of this odd league table about who's trying to outdo who when it comes to who is more trans-inclusive with the kids than the next person. There's something makes me uneasy about this.
Supposing a child comes home and says, you think, oh, I've done well today. He said, well, how have you done? He said, well, I was #1 painter, or I was #1 reader. No, I wasn't. I was made LGBT champion. You know, this is a 4- and 5-year-old. Look, I can understand this, actually, as we develop into the secondary school. I can understand more debates taking place. I cannot understand why we have to thrust it at young children. And I think if you ask the parents, they'd be hostile to it. And what about the role the teacher has to play in all this?
Society has been one way, the pendulum is swinging the other way, and they're pushing it very far in order to kind of proliferate change. And this is probably the toughest period in that evolutionary process, because the LGBTQ+ community is saying that you've got to really rage against the machine to get people to listen. Because put it like this now, even this conversation, the whole country is listening, the whole world is listening. These are the kinds of eyeballs and ears they haven't had before. And there's going to be friction. There's going to be a locking of heads in the process to getting to a point where you establish a new equilibrium where they feel more incorporated. Like I've said, the greatest force of allies that the LGBTQ plus community has always had is heterosexual women. What you're moving towards now is doing things that is beginning to turn them from allies into people who feel that, oh, for you to thrive, I'm being deprived, and that's a problem. When they realize you're alienating allies, they will understand you've got to recalibrate to have that kind of understanding between both parties.
Welcome back to Patrick Christys tonight here on GB News. I've got some more front pages for you. Let's do it. OK, so we start with the Mirror. Yeah, look, pure evil, says the Mirror. I mean, this is the absolutely astonishing story of a career criminal who was free, somehow, to stab to death an 87-year-old person on a mobility scooter just 5 days after leaving jail. They've put pure evil on the Daily Mirror. I'm inclined to agree with them. Look, oh, gosh, talking of another evil act, we go to The Sun now. They're honouring the hero teen. So The Sun backs calls to give the George Cross to a student who very sadly died trying to save her pal. Amazing Grace is the front page that they've gone for there. Today, The Sun calls for the incredible bravery of Grace O'Malley Kumar to be honoured with the St George's Cross. We all remember that Nottingham stabbing spree that happened there. Valdo Calacane got an unbelievably soft sentence as well. They allowed him to be tried as essentially a mental health person and not actually a triple murderer and triple attempted murderer, which I think he is. And Grace O'Malley Kumar was desperately trying to save her pal, Barney Webber, sadly lost her life as well. So, yeah, look, good campaign that from The Sun. I think most people would agree that that's completely justified. I'm going to go to my panel now. I'm going to focus on the Mirror, if that's OK for now. The pure evil. The leader of a gang of robbers knifed an 87-year-old to death on a mobility scooter 5 days after being released from jail. From what I remember from this story, the individual had, this 87-year-old man, had a kind of charity box with him on his scooter. Right. Suzanne, I saw you furiously shaking your head during this story. You know, an absolute shocker, isn't it?
I just think we have a state where judges, magistrates, they just seem to be so woolly and wet and give people the benefit of the doubt all the time. You know, you're an armed robber, you're a career criminal. Why are you not locked up forever? What happened to that 3 strikes and you're out? Why was he let out at all? It seems crazy to me.
Presumably there's a panel if you get let out, because they all get let out early, don't they? So there's a panel that decides whether you're fit to go. Yeah, that couldn't remember the name. Parole board that decides whether you're fit to be let out. And these people let criminals out all the time who then go on to commit more crimes. So who are these parole board people? Is it because they're just trying to free up spaces in the prison, which I suspect they are, because we don't have any? Partly it. I think that's partly the reason.
Yeah, I mean, we have a serious shortage of prison spaces at the moment, and so we know that judges aren't putting people behind bars for less serious crimes. And I think that's one of the problems, that people are getting away with so many crimes that they go on to think that they can get away with heinous things like what happened here.
Why are people now just wandering into corner shops with machetes? I know there's always been a bit of this, right? But, I mean, people stop caring. People absolutely stop caring. You know, brought you some footage earlier on.
We stopped prosecuting shoplifting.
We've stopped prosecuting. We haven't stopped caring.
Well, the people who are doing it stopped caring.
I mean, the cops, even there was a story the other day saying that more than half the burglaries in this country, I never even looked at. Remember the cops promised last year they would turn out for every burglary?
Well, they'll investigate
every hate crime. They haven't done that.
It's like the majority of crimes are committed by a small minority of people.
Yeah.
But police need to be visible. You want to see them on the streets, because I bet they wouldn't dare even try that if they thought
I'd have more armed police visible.
There.
And I know this is controversial. You know, it's up to police officers if they want to be armed police, of course. I wouldn't just make them be armed. But I actually, far from seeming scared when I see armed police officers, I feel very reassured. I feel very reassured. And I just wonder again, maybe, because if you're taking a machete to a corner shop, you are then an armed threat, aren't you? If you come out an armed officer with that, you get shot. And that might stop
where
you.
are the police? There will be no police on the beat. And this is why they do it, and it's why they get away with it. And we all know, you know, you get away with one small crime and you progress. And you become a career criminal.
We can't keep on saying there's not enough cops in this country, because there are more than there've ever been before. The one thing the Tories have kept a promise on is the 2019 manifesto to put 20,000 more officers on the street.
Except that the problem is that because they got rid of 20,000 and hired 21,000, you've got a lot of inexperienced, maybe underqualified people, and so they're not doing the kind of job that you need.
And what are they doing?
You see some of the police.
They're rolling through people's Twitter
feeds. They look like kids. I mean, I'm saying they look like kids. I'm 32, and I think they look like kids. You know, it's ridiculous. Right, I just want to whiz us through this story. So it's on the front of the Daily Mail of thankfully been given a bit more detail on this now by my wonderful team out there. So teachers have been given an unprecedented alert yesterday, and this, dare I say, it might affect your kids and grandkids, so watch out for this. It's an alert yesterday about pupils being targeted in a sextortion scam. So the National Crime Agency has warned that all 570,000 primary and secondary school teachers across Britain that children as young as 5 are at risk. Criminals from West Africa and Southeast Asia are luring children online, tricking them to believing that they are in a genuine relationship or friendship with someone their own age before demanding that they share intimate photographs or film themselves on a webcam. Blackmailers then threaten to release the nude or semi-nude photos of them, either real or fake, apparently, to their friends and family unless they pay up. But how do these kids pay? I mean, this is a lot to this. I mean, if we're talking about primary school kids here, I mean, how are they going to pay?
Well, this is what Rishi Sunak's been talking about this week, isn't he? He wants to actually stop children under 16 having a social media account. He wants to stop them having mobile phones. And, you know, the tech companies have been pushing back against this, saying that's completely restrictive, and I'm kind of inclined to agree. But unfortunately, this is what happens when you let children have access to a technology that I'm afraid is exploited by really nasty people.
Yeah.
But it's hard to imagine a 5-year-old being coerced into sending naked pictures of themselves.
I don't know. Well, I mean, I don't want to think about it, but unfortunately...
I don't want to think about it,
confronted
but
by
it's
it.
hard to imagine that would actually happen. You know, we know that kids in certain parts of the country, they're lured into drugs. They're running drugs at 5, 6 or 7 on kind of rough estates. But I've never heard of this before.
Yeah. I mean, it's horrifying, and I think it shows how much our schools and our laws are behind the curve, because the kind of things that kids are exposed to are put at risk of. None of us can imagine, because it didn't exist when any of us were that age. But also, you know, the ability to deal with these crimes, even for adults, is poor. The feminist campaigner Patsy Stevenson, who used to be on this programme sometimes, she came public about how she was threatened with blackmail over personal photos. She went to the police with the details of those messages, and they said, oh, sorry, he didn't actually do it, so we won't take the crime on. Yeah. So if they won't do it for a fully grown woman with money and lawyers behind her, then what chance does a kid going to their parents have?
Yeah, exactly. All right. So, I have been showing you the man who has Rocky Balboa-style eggs for breakfast, all right? Well, here's more from the guy who calls himself the Liver King, and it's another example of one of his favourite, albeit weird, meals. Would you eat this?
More.
Well, that's the steak. That's all right. I don't mind that bit. But I mean, this guy eats excessive amounts of meat and then promotes it as healthy eating. But he also eats things like raw chicken and beef that he washes down with eggs as well. I mean, surely that cannot be healthy. I mean, that is bonkers. I've been showing you a bit of the eggs and meat clip. I don't know if I can maybe bring that back up at some point as well, but absolutely astonishing.
Well, you're saying it was healthy. Look at his body. It's incredible. That's quite healthy, I think, don't you?
I mean, I don't want to get sued by the Liver King, Carol, but I'm not sure all of that's natural.
I was wondering.
Do you not think that? So he's taken all of that with a few maybe chemicals.
So he's got raw eggs and raw mince.
Oh. I can't even eat liver.
He's a messy eater, isn't he?
He's a messy
I mean, it's that beard's not making it easy, but he just shouldn't eat like
Having said that, well, actually, now I think about it, as I was being told in my ear, which is actually fair enough, that is probably just steak tartare, isn't it?
Well, yes, and also, remember, he's on that... People who want to lose weight go on the protein diet, because that creates muscle, and that's all he's having, protein.
Well, I'm not sure that's all he's having, but yeah, there we go.
Oh,
right, it's time to reveal today's greatest Britain and Union jackass.
Oh, my God.
Carol, your greatest Britain.
Right, my greatest Britain is Work and Pensions Secretary Mel Stride. He's saying that sickness benefits for many are going to be cut very soon. He's also saying that people who are suffering from minor mental health issues, which in some cases he's saying is just like a bit of anxiety, dealing with the ups and downs of life, he's saying that their benefits are going to be cut too. They're going to have to get a bit of therapy, get themselves back to work, because actually working is very good for you. It's better, yeah.
Mine is so off-brand, but my greatest Britain is Andrew Rosendale, the Conservative MP. I talked about how I'd never celebrated St George's Day before, and so last week he welcomed me to the Speaker's house for their St George's reception.
You're just showing off now.
That was full of GB News viewers that watch this show and love this show, so it was a delight to talk to lots of them. They all said they don't agree with a word I say, but I enjoyed celebrating my first St George's Day,
he's
and
a
he
good
did a great
bloke. I
job.
have a drink.
Lovely, lovely. Go on.
So mine's Lindsay Smith. She's a Newcastle United supporter and she was investigated by the Premier League and banned from the club because comments she made on social media that were gender critical. So basically, she was banned from a football club for expressing her legally protected gender critical beliefs. So she's suing them to end the ban and to get compensation. Good luck to you, Lindsay.
OK, today's Greatest Britain is Andrew Rosendale. Yeah, there you go, there you go. He's a semi-regular on this show, so there we are.
Can I just say, you've just ensured yet another visit to the Commons.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I have, yeah. And also I can't help but notice, we've got to say, but the left-wingers on this show have figured out how to win the British Union Jackass by nominating people like The Viewers or Andrew Rosendale. I know what you did. Right, sorry, we've literally got seconds, so go on.
Mine's Hamza Yousaf, who, Sturgeon started the decline of this once great country, and he's finished it off today. Scotland deserves better than him.
All right. My Union Jackass is Keir Starmer, because he said that he'll protect the triple lock for 5 years.
Yay.
I think the pensioners are the most entitled generation.
Get out with your pensioners.
Why do you hate the elderly?
On this occasion, Sir Keir is wrong.
You hate the old people. Go on, Suzanne.
So having backed Lindsay Smith for GB, it's got to be Newcastle United for UJ for investigating their fans for stating biological fact and being utter prats, really. I'm so sorry, Newcastle United, but that's what you are.
Yeah, and not the fans. It's important to say. We've got lots of viewers in the North East who I know would agree with what you were saying. So there we go. Right, today's winner of the Union Jacket, obviously, is Hamza Yousaf. Yes, he's gone. Guys, I've really enjoyed tonight. Thank you very, very much. Really, really good stuff. What a way to start the week. It's headliners next. There's a lot for them to go at. Some great front pages. No doubt the inside of the book's even better. I will see you tomorrow at 9. All right, well done. Lovely.
Thank you.
That was good. I'm going to take that. I'm just home now.
Time for your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Good evening to you. Tomorrow, more wet weather to come in parts of the west, whereas in the east, it'll start to feel fairly warm in the late April sunshine. Low pressure is still dominating, but it's kind of slow moving, and it's in these western areas where we've seen outbreaks of rain today that we will again see them tomorrow. Staying fairly damp overnight across South Wales, southwest England. The rain easing a little across parts of Scotland. The heavy showers also easing in Northern Ireland, at least for a time. Staying largely clear across East Anglia and the southeast. Temperature-wise, a bit warmer than recent nights. Most urban areas, at least, staying up at 7 to 10 degrees Celsius. On to Tuesday, and as I said, it's a bit of an east-west split. We'll start with a lot of cloud across northern England, but I'm hopeful it'll brighten up here. There will be further rain for Wales and Northern Ireland, some heavy rain as well, the yellows and the reds in there, and it's also fairly wet for parts of southwest England. Pretty gusty in these western areas as well. A few showers in western Scotland, but a good part of Scotland dry. Much of northern England, the Midlands, East Anglia and the southeast having a fine old day, and it will feel a bit warmer as well. Look at those temperatures, 17, 18, maybe even 19 Celsius, but still on the cool side where we've got the cloud and the breeze and the outbreaks of rain further west from that area of low pressure. That does pull away, allowing some warmer weather to move in over the next few days, but it is not going to be dry everywhere. There will still be some heavy rain around.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
We've blown the budget by giving you the chance to win a totally terrific £20,000 in tax-free cash to make your summer spectacular. You could use that cash to splash out on a holiday, make the garden glam, buy a new car, or just save it for a rainy day. Whatever you'd spend £20,000 on, make sure you don't miss the chance to make it yours. For a chance to win £20,000 in tax-free cash, text WIN to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB05 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 31st of May. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
In every corner of the world, people celebrate English tradition and values as members of the Royal Society of St George. Yet here in England, branches are closing as membership dwindles.
I feel that